All right, let's go to the Tennessee Titans. Eliminated. 5-10. Tennessee Titans. Cause of death for the Titans this season.
One of the worst offensive lines in the NFL.
Man, this is going to be a consistent trend.
Yeah,
Jets,
it is.
Patriots, Titans.
It's actually, I think,
Giants.
rare where you get, a collection of teams, either good or bad, where everything sort of points in one direction. But basically, every team that's been eliminated so far is a terrible offensive line.
So you're going with the specific cause of death. I'll take it a step back and say this was the team last year at this time when we got into the offseason talk and what was going to happen in free agency. Two things happened. One real big thing happened. The Titans started a rebuild last offseason, right? We would say when we were fixing every team in 5 minutes before free agency, we'd look at every team's depth chart, and they all had reasonable starters, and they had guys ready to come back.
Yeah.
But the Titans had to they overhauled the whole thing. They released a whole bunch of good players, and then they brought in a DeAndre Hopkins.
Yeah,
right. So they were the half in, half out, where competitive rebuild. I mean, to me, that's where it went wrong. As far as why didn't they make the playoffs this year? They're in the middle of this competitive rebuild. We want to be good enough, but we're thinking to the future. We're thinking about next year. On field, absolutely. The offensive line has been rough. And when the guys have been injured, they're putting in backups that aren't much better because that's what happens with backups. It's definitely that. I think the cornerback situation, it's the worst outside cornerback situation in the NFL this year. So I think there's been a few issues, but the reason is they're in the middle of this competitive rebuild, and the competitive part was lacking this year.
Yeah, they ranked dead last in pass blocking efficiency as an offensive line this season. And that's a hard thing to do this year of all years when you consider some of the offensive lines that are out there. Actually, how many teams have we got that are eliminated? 8?
Sounds right.
Well, the bottom 4 are
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Yeah, so for the bottom 4 spots in pass blocking efficiency in terms of offensive lines this season are eliminated. 5 out of the bottom 6 are eliminated. Almost all of the worst offensive lines in the league this year in terms of pass blocking are already dead. It's a big connecting factor here.
Yeah, I mean that's an issue. Creep back toward average, all of you.
Right. The Jets were next. The Jets are second worst in terms of pass blocking efficiency. The Titans are worse than the Jets. That's how bad they have been.
Yeah, I think that's part of the thing that was supposed to be in Brock Purdy's favor is that the 49ers pass blocking grades at least are in that same boat as some of these other teams, and they're still able to produce at a top-notch level. I know that's not the story this week, but anything else about the Tennessee Titans and how they got here? We see on the screen here one of their big offseason moves, signing left tackle Andre Dillard. He had never really been a starter for an extended period of time. That has not worked out. So again, I think they felt like they were in this. Look at the contract for Andre Dillard, 3 years, $29 million. That's like a mid-level tackle contract. Everything that they did felt kind of half in, half out. I'm not saying that signing a tackle for 3 years, just under $10 million a year is bad. But everything that the Titans did was kind of hey, we're going to get rid of the high-priced guys. We're going to bring in some, mid-tier type of starters at mid-tier money, but we really want to build through the draft and rebuild it, from the ground up.
The halfway house of competitive rebuild, I don't really have a take on either way. I don't have a problem with it. There are teams that do it. I don't know if I would go that approach if I was, in charge of a team, but I don't think that that's a reason that things didn't work out. Ultimately, the problem was they just made too many mistakes in terms of personnel. They had a bunch of different moves that were a part of this whole thing, and almost all of them have failed. So spending money on Andre Dillard to come in and fix your left tackle spot, this is not a hindsight move. That was a move that at the time looked ridiculous as a concept, right? There's literally nothing other than the fact that Dillard was a former first-round pick that says that's going to work. He's been a pretty bad NFL player, and the chances of him having not only a career year, but improving his baseline, going from A, the best offensive line in the NFL, and B, the best offensive line coach in the NFL, to your team. Neither of those things are true. is minimal, and it didn't work out. So that's one. Treylon Burks, first round wide receiver, essentially has to replace A.J. Brown because they traded him away. So far, Treylon Burks has done almost nothing and has been banged up and injured, et cetera, et cetera. So that didn't work. They spent big money on edge rushers recently. That hasn't worked out. Bud Dupree is already not with the team. Harold Landry's been injured, so okay, that's just unlucky. But just so many moves that they've made across this roster have almost all failed, and that's a huge problem. Like, you just can't swing and miss that many times and have it work out. I mean, Will Levis right now has the potential to basically rescue this entire roster, and honestly, he might not be getting enough credit for how he's playing when you consider how bad the offensive line is in front of him. Because, I mean, you shouldn't be able to play even vaguely functional football behind that group.
Yeah, I think that sums it up. Third, the other thing, again, I'll mention is the pass defense has not been great. Third worst EPA per play allowed against the pass this year, and I think a lot of it is in that secondary, particularly at cornerback.
Right, and that's same idea, right? Like the moves that they've made there. They draft a first round corner, complete failure, total and utter failure. Sean Murphy Bunting comes in as a free agent, hasn't played up to the level they need or expected from him. Like, again, just the moves they've made, they've whiffed.
The real cause of death, though, as you highlighted, was 2 years ago, A.J. Brown. It's been downhill since the
trade away your one superstar.
Since the A.J. Brown trade.
Rather than pay him what is a pretty modest contract from a wide receiver point of view.
Again, at a high level, understanding that how did they get to the AFC Championship in 2019 and were very competitive with Ryan Tannehill? Was there run game elements? Was it relying on Derrick Henry? Like, I think they did well with that, but I think the elite receiver, A.J. Brown, was the driver for Tannehill's most productive seasons and for the Titans' best seasons. And we're in that world where if you don't have an elite quarterback, and there's very few of those elite quarterbacks, if you don't have one, elite receiver is the next best thing to elevate your offense.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, a lot of these problems are just lingering effects from, previous. John Robinson has been fired as GM, but a lot of these are his moves we're talking about. Like, it's just, this is the cause and effect of a few years of bad roster and cap management.